Welcome. Today we have two very distinguished guests. I have Dr. Amrik Singh, a professor from California State University at Sacramento, and I have Jada Bernard, who's a human rights activist based out of California. We're here to discuss India's Republic Day, which has been celebrated this past week with the arrival of President Obama with a congressional delegation, including Nancy Pelosi and Ami Bera. Now, I don't know very much about Republic Day. Could you kind of tell us what they're celebrating and what the achievement is here that they're talking about?
So India celebrates its Constitution Day. It's called a Republic Day, and 26th January 1950. Ever since then, this day is being celebrated in a big way. When India, demonstrates its strength, military, and its foreign policy strength, and India tries to tell the whole world what it means to be India.
This is kind of like the 4th of July for India.
Yeah.
Well, we have a clip here from President Obama praising the Indian Constitution there on Republic Day. Let's look at the clip here.
With the tricolor waving above us, we celebrated the strength of your Constitution. And so even as we live in a world of terrible inequality, we're also proud to live in countries where even the grandson of a cook can become president, or even a Dalit can help write a constitution.
Here we have President Obama talking about the Indian Constitution, obviously a positive way, affirming the Indian Constitution as a good thing. And he mentions a Dalit helps write it. Can you tell us about who this Dalit is and what you think of the Indian Constitution?
He was referring to Dr. Ambedkar, who is one of the great intellectuals of the 20th century, and a great Indian, and who went to Columbia University in New York. So his services were pressed to write Indian Constitution. So the hardest part of writing a constitution was completed by Dr. Ambedkar. And but they didn't keep everything he wrote. So because he was the chairman of a committee which had more than 100 of other members.
Right.
So they edited whatever he did. That's why he said once that this constitution is not good for anyone. And if tomorrow there is a line to burn this constitution, he would be the first one to burn Indian constitution.
I see.
So it's very strange that our president, who represents the most powerful nation of the world, and who knows very little about how things are, in the world. For example, I would say Gandhi. He just knows the Western falsely created image of Gandhi. He doesn't know the Gandhi, the historical Gandhi. He knows only the political Gandhi.
Right.
So similarly, he knows the Indian Constitution, political constitution of the Hindu Rashtra, but he doesn't know. But this constitution represents for all Indians, and India represents so many diverse groups, and so many diverse religions. So it's pity that when a president of such a big nation, great nation, is so ignorant about the reality, and he tries to sustain the kind of discrimination, the genocide, which has been happening in the last 70 years under this constitution.
Right. So obviously you're not a fan of the Constitution.
Not at all.
And so the quote you just said was, if they had a line to burn the Constitution, Ambedkar would be first in there. Knowing what you know about the Constitution, what do you think Obama's thinking about this Constitution? What would you tell him about this Constitution in comparison to, say, the United States Constitution?
Well, I will point out the difference in the Constitution. Firstly, the difference in size. Over 117,000 words in the Indian Constitution compared to less than 5,000 in ours.
Right.
But ours, even though it was much shorter, it was very deliberate to list blacks as being people. But with all of these words, there's still ambiguity as to the personhood of ethnic minorities. Even as far as when Dr. Amrik talked about Dr. Ambedkar, he called him an intellectual. And when Obama talked about him, he called him a Dalit, referring to his skin color.
Right. So that's definitely a problem. So the different minority groups, how did they come to accept this constitution if it doesn't explicitly say, to recognize their individual or human rights? How did this come to be the law of the land for them?
First of all, the Sikhs of India right away rejected this. They refused to sign any such document because their vision of Indian nationality was far, far ahead and more advanced. In their vision of Indian nationality, there was no Pakistan.
Okay.
And Pakistan was created singularly by Gandhi. And when he accepted this proposal of the Congress that India needs to be divided into two nations. So Gandhi is responsible for the genocide that happened on the partition of India and Pakistan in 1947. So our president, when he is talking about Indian Constitution, first of all, he's contradicting himself. Our State Department, the State Department of United States of America, for more than 10 years did not allow Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to visit America.
Right.
He was refused visa consistently. And now he has been elected, and America opened all doors for him.
Right, that is quite.
This is a big contradiction.
Very big contradiction.
How one can justify what America stands for?
Right, and so you have the prime minister before he's prime minister blocked from the country. Suddenly he's elected, and now he's getting presidential visits and congressional delegations. That is definitely a problem. I want to go back to what you said about the Sikhs originally being opposed to the Constitution. I have a quote here from Hukam Singh, who was part of the Constitutional Convention. We'll put this up on the screen right now. It says, the various rights are subject to the existing restrictive laws or laws which may be made hereafter. The fundamental rights are worthless as they have so many restrictions and are left at the mercy of the legislature. That's one of the complaints in this quote that Sikhs have continued to bring up, that religious minorities have continued to bring up in the modern Indian state, is that the Constitution by itself just fails to protect their religious freedoms. Who do you think is best served by this Constitution? What are its weaknesses? How has it been abused? In 60 years, what's the legacy that the Constitution has for the people of India?
This Constitution in the last 70 years has only sustained the supremacy of the Hindu Rashtra, the Hindu nation. And whether it is a Congress party, though it always says it's secular, but secularism also means Hinduism in India.
Right.
So even though it's the Socialist Party, even they are, equated with Hinduism. So all the major national parties have been sustaining Hinduism in a very subtle way, and they are doing in their own way by deceiving the world.
Right.
That they are deceiving the whole world by presenting violence as non-violence. And by choosing not to sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty,
right,
NPT,
right.
But still standing as a non-violent nation.
So what are the individual states here? We have Sikhs are from Punjab. We have other states that are under the Indian Constitution. Are there particular sovereignties recognized and respected by the Indian government under this Constitution?
No, it's a centralized form of government. There's no federalism in the name. And it's just, again, an optical illusion that the Indian Constitution gives a lot of power to the state. It
right.
doesn't. It all centralizes. And the states have no choice. They can be, the government in the state can be dismissed any time. The central rule can be imposed any time. And until or unless they have their own, puppet leader installed
right.
in the state.
See, that's not the picture that Obama's given. Here we have another video to queue up with Obama's additional comments on the Constitution's protection of religious freedom, and we'll go ahead and play those clips right now.
Our freedom of religion is written into our founding documents. It's part of America's very first amendment. Your Article 25 says that all people are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and the right freely to profess, practice, and propagate religion. India will succeed so long as it is not splintered along the lines of religious faith, so long as it's not splintered along any lines, and is unified as one nation.
Well, Jada, we're obviously talking about the First Amendment. He's referencing the American Constitution again. To you, can the Indian Constitution, specifically Article 25 that he mentions, be compared to the First Amendment?
Well, it can be compared, but they are not alike. Our Constitution is very specific to protect religious freedom. The Indian Constitution is very ambiguous in the words that it uses concerning religious freedom, and actually you get a war is peace type effect. And so,
do you think his comments here are useful to, I mean, is he sending the right message by quoting the Indian Constitution and comparing it to the American Constitution? Is that the right thing? What are the people in India going to think when they hear Obama's words?
Well, they're going to think that he's a part of the same government that oppresses them. They're going to hear his comments as siding with the state. They are not productive to the people.
No.
They further the idea that war is peace, that violence is nonviolence, and that religious freedom is actually being protected from the freedom of being preached to about any other religion.
Right. Well, what do you think of this, Dr. Amrik? He says... go ahead.
I think religious freedom in this term, it only means freedom to choose Hinduism. That's the only mean. It is confined to only one statement. You have no other freedom at all. So the Article 25, which Sikhs have been protesting right from day one when India became free, and they have been protesting that they are Sikhs, not Hindus.
Right.
But 25 article, makes them that Sikhs are Hindus.
Right.
And I don't know how our President Obama can interpret it and compare it with the First Amendment.
Yeah. So what about the other religious minorities, Jada? We have, a small minority of Christians, a small minority of Hindus, Buddhists, who are in India. How are they hearing Obama's words about the state of India unity being important while they see their religious freedom disappearing?
Yes, well, they're going to hear the unity that Obama speaks as being a unity of mind under the state. And what that does is it directly negates their ability to be separate heterogeneous groups and to have any type of freedom to worship any God that they want. Unity does not mean in that sense what we think of. And when we hear that word unity, there's so much ambiguity in it that it allows for the oppression to continue under that guise.
Right. Well, the other part of this is we have Obama, but we also have Congressman Ami Bera, who's Indian American. He's the only Indian American congressman currently. How come he doesn't get it? Why doesn't he understand the Indian issues if he's going there with Obama? How can he be so off base on this issue?
That's very unfortunate, I would say. Ami Bera, he's the third among the Indians, the first to be elected, Dalip Singh Sawant, back in 1956. He's the first Sikh, first Indian, and the first Asian to be elected. And so he represented, I think, better than Ami Bera and Jindal so far. So it's very unfortunate that Ami Bera can choose to stand with Modi, who has been acknowledged as an active participant in the genocide of Indians. And it's very unfortunate, I would say. Why he did that? We opposed him here in California. All the Sikhs chose not to vote for him. and that's what we could do, and we
Right.
did.
Right. So I understand that even his last election, the Sikhs got involved. We actually have a clip here of a protest your group organized about Ami Bera. What is it? We'll show the clip here. We'll put that up.
With exactly 1 week to go to Election Day, incumbent Congressman Dr. Ami Bera facing some tough critics. Today, the American Religious Freedom Coalition protested outside of Bera's district office in Rancho Cordova. They're protesting Bera's alleged ties with the Prime Minister of India. The Prime Minister's political party has been accused of persecuting and killing Christians in India. The American Religious Freedom Coalition says that they fear that will have an influence on Bera. Former President
So we've been talking a little bit about the delegation that went with Barack Obama that included Ami Bera. What is it about Ami Bera that really resonated with Sikhs? I know you guys did some work during the campaign season. Give me some examples about Ami Bera that kind of ignited the Sikh community.
I think earlier in the last election, most of the Sikhs supported him, but only in this election, because when he was asked the 1984 genocide against Sikhs, in which more than 25,000 Sikhs were killed, and so when he was asked the question whether it was done under the supervision of the Indian government, so he denied it. And when all the facts and figures state clearly that the Indian government was involved in it, and many of the congressmen here in America also acknowledged that it was state-sponsored genocide. And so Ami Bera refuses to acknowledge it, and that ignited the Sikhs against him.
So it's a genocide that happened in India in 1984, pretty widely acknowledged. Like you said, local congressmen, other leaders, Amnesty International has it as a recognized genocide, Human Rights Watch. What does it say to minority communities, Indian, African American, when you have a leader who is basically acting as a what another Sikh is called a Holocaust denier?
Right, and we've all experienced those before, Holocaust deniers, and we treat them as though they're being absurd, and it's a big deal to deny that these genocides happen and that they were state sponsored. It's the equivalent of denying that that segregation during the 60s was sponsored by the United States government, or that apartheid was sponsored by the South African government. And what he's specifically denying is a genocide, like you said, that we know for a fact happened. And this Holocaust that they're denying, the word Holocaust means burnt offering. And if Indian nationalism is making a burnt offering, and we see this religious freedom being hindered by religious freedom, what are they giving an offering to? Okay, and what they're doing is they're offering up these people groups, just as the during the Third Reich, the Jews were offered up as a burnt offering, in favor of progression to a new system. And this new system is the Indian state being in totalitarian control of the people down to their religious choices and even their ethnicity.
Right. And I guess that's probably why it's such a big deal for Sikhs in America to see the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, standing shoulder to shoulder with Ami Bera. We've mentioned Modi briefly, but what is it about Modi that really bothers you as an Indian American, as a Sikh American?
First of all, American government, it bothered American government for about 10 years. And all of a sudden, it stopped bothering them. And so Modi, under the state power, killed thousands of Muslims. The whole world knows that it was state-sponsored. And so since he has been enjoying 3 terms as the Chief Minister of Gujarat, so it was very easy for him to get away with it. And finally, by igniting the Hindu chauvinism, now he has become Prime Minister. But it doesn't mean that all those crimes have been washed away.
Right.
And the world should see that. And why even the United States of America shut its eyes against what they were objecting to it for so many years. and Amnesty International and so many other human rights watch groups, indicted him clearly. And so this is something amazing, how you can install a real criminal at the center of the power, and then you can become one of the complicit, you become accessory to the crimes.
Right. And so we see Modi's actions, like you mentioned, the slaughter of the Muslims. What is the goal here? Modi's a prime minister. He's obviously targeting religious minorities. What's Modi's end game? How does this impact religious minorities in these various provinces in India?
Well, we first need to see things how they see them, and the contrast between the way that we see things. We as Americans tend to misunderstand propaganda and not understand that things can be wrapped in nice packages and be very destructive, gifts.
Right.
And this illusion of religious freedom actually effectively criminalizes Abrahamic religions who proselytize.
So this is like Christianity, Islam, Judaism.
Yes.
Okay. So
these religions where we will go out and share our faith with people and even share God's plan for their life. And if we were to share God's displeasure with things that we do, it would immediately be illegal. And though this statement is illegal under that law, I feel very much so at liberty saying that God is not pleased with that type of law.
Right, obviously. So we have our president coming to this country, praising them for religious liberty, praising the Constitution for defending multi-faith. Obviously, the ideals here are not matching the reality. Why is this? Why do we have a country that professes religious liberty, but it exists not in reality?
I think the West is buying India's skills in how to package violence into the packages of non-violence. That's, I think, the most attractive idea for the West. That's why they're promoting Gandhi. That's why they are promoting, all those Hindu yogis and those who do meditations and all that. These are some of the history, the experience says these are the facades built to, keep the violence under very attractive romantic packages, so that it doesn't look bad. So that's how.
Right. And you mentioned Gandhi here. Mm-hmm. Now you know that there's a proposed statue of Gandhi, destined for London in Parliament Square, where they're seeking to have a statue of Gandhi right next to Churchill. What do you think of that? What do you think of Gandhi being a symbol of India, and having that symbol exported to London there?
If England, the British government is trying to do that, it's hurting half of the world, I would say. More than 60 to 70% of the Dalits in India. And their very popular, legendary leader, Dr. Ambedkar, who was so much tortured by Gandhi. And it's on record.
Right.
And all those people know that Gandhi, how he criminalized all the untouchables of India, and how he denied their religious freedom, by forcing Dr. Ambedkar to sign the Pune Pact in 1932. So, and Gandhi's racist remarks, most of the African Americans here in America do not know what his real private comments were about the African Americans.
Well, what did he say? Obviously Gandhi was involved with African relations. What do we know about Gandhi in America? We've been told Gandhi is the influential figure for Martin Luther King. What should we know about Gandhi? How does it relate to this particular issue?
Yeah, well, with what we've been told, his statue would fit perfectly next to Mandela and to Churchill's, because the political Gandhi very much so fits that picture. But the real Gandhi was a hateful Gandhi. And to erect a statue like that, to erect the tons of statues that we see all over, to continue to propagate him as a man of peace, is a slap in the face
Why do you say that? I mean, what Gandhi is a symbol everywhere of nonviolence and peace. What are some examples of how Gandhi is a racist? I mean, that would be unheard of most of the world.
Well, in South Africa, he was actually very much so instrumental in that apartheid system that was set up in the early 1900s, to the point to where he's thought of as being the father of apartheid. He was very much so unsympathetic to the cause of the native South Africans, which is why he was denied the Nobel Peace Prize 5 times.
Because of his racism.
Because of his racism.
Wow. Yes,
and he hated the South Africans, the natives. He thought that the Kafirs were uncivilized. He compared them to animals. You know, he always fought for whites to be superior and for blacks to be inferior. And when he came with the idea of equality or a complex system in South Africa, it wasn't so that the blacks could be treated better, but it was just so that the Indians wouldn't have to be treated like blacks.
Yeah, that's definitely troubling. I wouldn't want that statue to represent my country. I have a clip here. We're going to play this from Indian intellectual Arundhati Roy, who in 2014 said the following. So let's go ahead and play that.
It will be distressing for people in the black community who have been taught to valorize him. In fact, Gandhi believed in racial segregation. His first victory in South Africa was to campaign for a third entrance to be opened in the Durban post office, so Indians would not have to use the same entrance as Kafirs. He calls them savages and Kafirs.
We also have a statement that was put out by your guys' organization, the Organization for Minorities of India, from U.S. Congressman Adolphus Towns in 2005, where he says that Gandhi ignored the suffering of black people during the colonial occupation of South Africa. When he arrested and forced to share a cell with black prisoners, he wrote that there were only 1 degree removed from the animal. In other words, Mr. Speaker, he described blacks as less than human. We condemn anyone who says that this is our country, such as the Ku Klux Klan and others, as we should. Why is Gandhi venerated for such statements? So this is a statement from a U.S. congressman. What has venerating Gandhi done for India today? What is the result of really making an idol out of Gandhi?
I think the only attraction for the Indians, because they could sustain the political power by using his image. So what they did, they created a myth of Gandhi, and they perfected that myth. And I think if I go by that myth, even I would love to appreciate Gandhi.
Right.
But that's totally a myth, and that myth has a political myth. In order to sustain the power and kill the minority and still go as non-violent nation.
Right.
And that suits everybody, because you have to keep your skeletons in a cupboard and you don't want to let the world know how criminal you are. So Gandhism is a kind of a cover for all that inhuman violence in the world going on. So this is how I see the real Gandhi. Right. But the myth of Gandhi, because the world talks about the myth of Gandhi, not the Gandhi, the historical man.
Right.
The history of Gandhi. So, but we should be concerned about the history of Gandhi more than the myth of Gandhi.
So what do you think the future of India has in store? Is democracy safe in Gandhi? Are religious minorities safe? What do you see happening in the near future if nothing changes in India?
I think India is going to be in for a big trouble, and all the religious minorities are endangered, in the present India. And I think the Third World War may be, conceived there by these Modis and others, and they would involve the whole world in it. Right. And if the West is not careful, their resources, their weapons, their nuclear energy is going to be used by these racist and chauvinist Hindus.
Right. And we know the president is there. He has a large amount of support from African American communities, and has maintained his plea to transparency and wanting to hear from communities. in the United States, if you could speak to Obama and tell him what the communities here in the United States think about relations in India, what would you say?
I would appeal to his humanity, and I would warn him of everything that Dr. Amrik said would happen. What I see India being a huge hub of culture, and now of political power, with the things and the shifts in the political climate that we have in international relations with just the installation of Modi as prime minister.
Right.
And so as India has served to influence the culture of the world and now is serving to influence the politics of the world, we can see that this legislation is very much so dangerous.
Yes.
If religious freedom is removed in India, then what next? If we as Americans do not stand up for the rights of humans to have religious freedom, then who will stand up for us when they come for us next?
Now, currently, there are 6 Indian states that already have active laws banning religious conversion. In India, they call these Freedom of Religion Acts, but we know them commonly referred to as anti-conversion laws. They criminalize religious conversion without first receiving government permission and undergoing some type of waiting period. Could you explain to us what these anti-conversion laws are and what the purpose of them is?
As soon as this government came into power, so it's dreaming of imposing a national law, anti-conversion law, because 6 states which already has this, so they have used this anti-conversion law in a very subtle way, that they stop all the Christian missionaries and all those who are going to Islam and Sikhism. So they are stopping them to be converted to these religions. But when it comes to converting Christian to Hinduism, so this law facilitates bringing all the Christians, bringing all the Muslims, bringing all the Sikhs to Hinduism. And they call it as a garbapsi. I mean, they have an imaginary state in which they say that all these Christians, Muslims, they were former Hindus and they were forcibly converted. So now we have every right to bring them back to the fold of Hinduism. So they are doing it with the state power. And so at present, so the nationalism and Hinduism have merged.
Right.
And there is no choice for other religions and minorities, to have a separate opinion or a kind of a freedom to choose. So they are under the threat. And the body which is engineering, this is called Rashtriya Swayam Sevak, RSS. That's the body of radical Hindus. And so they are ruling the roost.
So beyond the RSS, who do you think is behind this, and what does this mean for people who are currently Christians throughout India? Are anti-conversion ceremonies happening? Is this a threat to Christian communities throughout India?
Well, it's definitely frightening to think that Modi is in control of this. And historically, Modi has already used his police forces to execute Sikhs, Muslims, Christians by the thousands. And knowing that this is happening again and is happening at a national level is just simply frightening.
Right.
Because with more and more laws, you need more and more police to enforce them. And the only way that the police enforce any laws is with violence. And as the India is a third of the world's population, it's a good place to start doing these types of experiments. As far as who's behind it, according to my belief system, I know who the prince of the power of the air is. But there is a political system who the Sikhs call the Brahmins, who seem to be in control of these political climate shifts. And it's very scary to see history not only repeating itself, what happened in 1984, 2002, but also coming again on a national level now, looking forward to the future. Very frightening happenings, and very excited to get involved in opposition to this.
Right. So for the Sikhs and other religious minorities, what does it look like when the government comes to your door to enforce this law? How are they converting people back to Hinduism?
We are so much frightened because the entire leadership, now, since they didn't have any choice to have political power except under the Hindu government, so they became their allies, And so by and large, the Sikhs in Punjab, either they have been given too many drugs and they are drugged and they don't know anything about their history or culture, and they are actually right in their fold right now. It's just they are merely in name existing as Sikhs, but if you ask them, they are already Hindus, They consider themselves to be part of this nation.
Right.
So, I mean, they are succeeding in this manner because they are taking away, stealing all the choices from them.
Yeah, well, I want to thank both of you for being here today. This is a very interesting topic, and it's definitely showing how disconnected our country's policies are from the reality of what's happening in India. I want to thank you for your input, Dr. Singh and Jada Bernard. Thank you so much for coming on and really enlightening us on this issue. I hope that we can continue this conversation. Where is a good website for us to find out more about your organization?
OFMI.org is a wonderful place. It's a hub, lots of links, always has a background information, other places to look, but OFMI.org is a wonderful place to start.